The attendee level seems to have stalled a little bit. So with that, we'll open the meeting and we'll call this regular meeting of the Montoursville Area School District Board of School Directors to order on this Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 at 7:03 p.m. And with that, we'll begin the agenda first. The roll call. Brandy, would you take the roll?
Mr. Albert.
Yep.
Dr. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Kunkel.
Here.
Mrs. Marriott.
Here.
Dr. Mathers.
Here.
Mr. Ruffing.
Here.
Mr. Schimmel.
Here.
Mr. Snell.
Here.
And Mr. Ulmer.
Mr. Ulmer, present.
Okay, with that, we'll move along to item 1B, the recognitions and presentations. And board, if you know of a student or a Montoursville activity that deserves some recognition, please share that now. Otherwise, we'll move on to our student representative, and Zachary, welcome. And what do you have for us tonight, Zachary?
Nothing of really importance other than that there have been mixed signals from many different students about returning to school. Most of them have been good, but there have been a couple of, keep forgetting the word, but it's bad. But I really don't want to say that. Other than that, it's been all good and everybody's excited and happy to be in school learning because online is a bit tougher.
Thank you. That's understandable. Okay, with that, we'll move now to the reading of the minutes, and we have the minutes of the reorganizational meeting on December 1, the regular meeting on December 1. I don't think there were any other minutes, were there, Brandy? Okay, so and before we consider whether anything needs any corrections to those, but just I'll make a note that for the public that there was an executive session on January 5th for personnel reasons and contract discussions, and then executive session prior to this meeting for a legal issue, so get some legal advisory on an issue. So, all right, with that, board, as far as the approval of those minutes, if you're ready, someone make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, then with that, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I think, Dale, was that supposed to be an aye for approval? We had I think we had a little bit of a latency.
I'm very delayed.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Mine's
we
an
should
I
use
too, Dave.
Okay,
Mine's an I too.
all right. So that late aye actually was a good aye. No. All right. Then motion passes for approval on the reading of those minutes. Prior presentation at this time is from our auditors and Larson, Kellett and Associates, and we have Randy from that firm here to give us a presentation on the I guess the audit last year.
Yep. Good evening. As in the past, we have been invited to give a very brief overview of the results of the audit, not to, delve into the numbers or anything like that, and to also meet one of the requirements to make ourselves available to the board, to ask any questions of. So if you have any questions, as we did last year, we got into, I think, quite a big discussion on some things. Feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. I will talk about the two main products of our audit, which I'm assuming that you've all received. One is the letter report that I talk about every year, which is a direct communication from us, the auditors, to the board. And within that letter, we're required to highlight any issues that we think may need your attention. And we're also required to highlight any significant estimates that were used in preparation of the financial statement. As in the past, the most significant estimates are related to retirement and pension benefits, and also the value of investments within the financial statements. They're really the biggest estimates and guesses that are involved in preparing the statements. And I'm happy to say that the letter does not identify any issues that we had during the audit, because we didn't have any issues. So that's good news for you and me. So that's the letter report that we hand out and you have received. And then the second product of the audit is actually the audit itself. Now, the audit is, it's referred to as a single audit, which means that we are doing a financial statement audit where we are required to give an opinion on whether your financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects, which means we believe that someone could pick up these financial statements and make a reasonable and sound financial decision about the Montoursville Area School District as of June 30th, 2020, which is the time period the audit was based on, July 1st, 19 to June 30th, 2020. And we gave what's referred to as an unmodified opinion, which tells the readers of the financial statements that we do believe that your financial statements are fairly presented. And also, as part of the audit, we are required to audit your federal programs. So there's a formula that the federal government gives us that says, based on how much you expended in federal subsidies, it tells us which programs we need to look at and how many of them we need to audit. This year, as last year, because it happens to be the largest program that you're currently running, we audited the child nutrition. It's referred to as the child nutrition cluster. It's basically the food service, free and reduced lunches, and the school breakfast program. And once again, in relation to the audit of the federal programs, I'm pleased to say that we did not have any findings related to the federal programs, and we also didn't have any findings related to the financial statement. So everything, in our opinion, is fairly stated, and we don't have any issues to report related to the audit, which once again is a testament to the hard work that your staff, I believe, puts into this, and the seriousness with which they take the financial process at the school district. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the audit process or the numbers or what have you. Anything you might have, I'll do my best to answer, or defer to Brandy if I don't know. I assume silence means no questions, or everybody's on mute and can't get off. I have,
For myself, I haven't had a chance to really digest it, and
Yeah.
and if I have any questions, Brandy's, I know where she works, so I'll catch up with her.
sure. So, once again, it's, as far as, what I can tell you, I don't know, I don't talk about the numbers because you're already past that fiscal year thinking about the next budget year. So, that's why I don't do an analysis of the numbers, just give you the results of the audit and, make you aware of any issues of, like I said, which there were none. So that's why it's a kind of a short presentation. So nothing from anyone?
Brandy,
Yes, Dale.
no, just a question for Brandy. At the work session in January, we are going to perhaps ask some questions about the audit. Not necessarily that Andy or Randy would have to answer, but that you would be able to.
Yes, Dale.
Am I correct?
I just wanted to say, yes, we had already I already have planned to go through the audit numbers with the board at the work session, giving them more time to review it, and then I'll go through it with them at the work session. But I also wanted to say to Randy, your crew here did an amazing job this year, being very flexible with when they could come in because of other meetings going on, and really working with us. So I do want to say thank you, and please pass that on to your group of employees, because they did an amazing job, getting everything done with all the having to move around and, work with us so we have space and we could be distance and everything. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. We, try to work with you as best we can. So, and we appreciate your flexibility too. So
A lot this year.
it was a crazy year,
Yes.
as you well know.
Okay, if there's no questions then from the board, I think we'll move on to the next agenda item for, this is time for the public comment on the agenda items, and we allow 3 minutes per person. We want you to say your name and you give us your address, and then and let me remind again that if there are specific questions related that you have related to some issue, it is much better to email the principal or the administrator, the superintendent, and then they'll respond to your specific needs. So that's a way better forum to get answers that are specific and unique to you. So with that, then we'll have Sebastian open up the whatever you call that chat room for him to open up, and we'll give you your 3 minutes to comment on agenda items.
May I be excused? This is Randy.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Randy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
With that, it's time for the business manager's report.
All right, you have received copies of the treasurer's reports for the periods ending November 30th, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. You're now receiving the November ones because they were not available for the December 1st meeting because of the quick turnaround there. So this is for the general fund and the cafeteria fund. We are submitting these to the board for your consideration of approval.
Okay, board, do we have a motion to
approve.
We have a motion.
I'll
Do we have a
second.
sec? We have a second.
Move to
from
approve.
Scott? All right. Sorry, Dale. Scott beat you on that second. So, all right, discussion or questions on those?
I have one question, Brandy. Because of the free lunches to all students, how is that affecting our money we get from the federal government for our lunch program?
We get reimbursement for all lunches served, but that obviously doesn't cover all of our costs because our cafeterias where they normally start gaining some traction is with the sales of, the ice cream, the chips, the cookies, the extra stuff. And that has been very limited this year due to the fact that we can't sell some of that stuff. So it's our a la carte items that really help bring in our revenues. So we are receiving reimbursement for all of those meals from the federal government and the state. But our cafeteria account right now, we are running a little bit behind, but we have been working with Kristen Stevenson, the food service director, and trying to promote more ideas to get a la carte sales up in the time when it's very difficult to. So we are working on different things, but yes, it is running a little bit behind right now.
Well, actually, what my question, what I meant was, we get reimbursed for healthy meals, correct? On a normal year, we get reimbursed for a certain healthy meal. It has to be contained this, and this.
Yes.
And so my question is, since we are giving and getting reimbursed for them, but giving out the free lunches, how is that affecting our reimbursement for the healthy meals, if at all affecting?
I'm not sure I understand the question. We're getting reimbursed for all meals, not just the free and reduced ones. Like normally we get reimbursed more for the free and reduced. We're getting reimbursed the same amount for all the meals at the free and reduced rate. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking.
Okay, so what you're saying is the only real difference is that we're not making any money on the snacks, the a la carte. Yeah, that's the only difference, correct?
Yeah, our revenue is down because we don't have a la carte sales right now. So, we're working on getting that up because the cafeteria is struggling right now. And with the cafeteria not having any students in it the last couple of weeks because everyone was at home, we're not getting reimbursement for meals that kids aren't eating also.
So it's another area where we're dropping in revenue compared to what we expected to have
Yes.
for our budget. Okay,
Remember, the food service is a completely different fund.
Right.
Okay.
That's all I
Brandy,
got.
I wonder if you would comment. Brandy, I wonder if you would comment on, from your treasurer's report on other instructional programs, the expenditure, we're now 2.5 times what we budgeted for the year. What's the big driver there?
What was the category?
Other instructional programs. But we have an annual budget of 234,000 and we're at 554,000 now in terms of expenditures. I think in previous conversations with you, the cyber programs may be in that category.
Other instructional programs.
If you looked at the expenditure report, it's like the fourth line item.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to relate it to where
On the overview report.
Data. Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to tie it back to where I get it from. So I can look to see exactly where it's at. That has to do with, looks like the wall is in that category. So it's our Warrior Online Learning.
Okay, and so that wouldn't have been, I guess you took a shot at budgeting on that, but really didn't
It
know
wasn't
where we were
planned
going to
for.
be cost-wise?
No, it wasn't
Okay,
for in the budget.
yep. But that will continue, well, it will go up as long as we continue having remote learning, correct?
Wall has already been paid for this year.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have paid
So
that
we've seen the bulk of the expenditure items. Okay,
for our Warrior Online
thank you.
program.
Yep, okay.
Is charter and cyber included in that, Brandy?
I think that's a different one. I don't have the breakdown right in front of me and how these are pulled over because this is a sheet that is created specially for the board. So I have to tie actual financial reports from the program into this, and it's not broke down the same way. So I have to look at it, and it does not look like that the charter school is in that category.
Okay, thanks, Brandy.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion on the reports? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve those reports as presented.
We already have a motion and a second.
Oh, sorry, yes, we do. I guess we're ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, there are no budgetary transfers this evening. You've received copies of the listing of invoices for the general fund and the cafeteria fund for the period ending January 12th, 2021. We are submitting these to the board for your consideration of approval and payment.
Move to approve.
Do a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions?
I have a couple questions. The first question's for you, Joe. The check number 60130. And I understand that by looking at the invoices that this was for work done on one of our generators, which I understand needs to be done from time to time. I saw in the invoices that they added bacterial and fungal growth inhibitor into the tank after they cleaned the tank and flushed it. And are we adding that to our other generators so we don't have the issue we had with this one? Is that something new?
No, the fuel has sat for so long, and we do testing on all of the generators, and they always test well. Lighters came up a little bit out of the norm of the chemical scale, so we had to do it. And then McCall's came up as a coolant issue when they tested the coolant. So when I do these services every year, they do a really good job Cleveland of testing all the chemicals in the generators. And usually it comes back pretty good, but this year we had 2 issues, and I never ever cut corners on those generators. So yeah, that's why you see that right away. But if we see oil issue in, say, McCall's next year, we will do that on McCall's.
Well, my question is this an inhibitor that could be added on a regular basis to prevent anything, or is this something that you have to wait until the numbers on the chemicals are at a point where they shouldn't be?
That's correct. What happens is if we don't use the generator a lot, or if the building power doesn't go out, and these only exercise on Friday, that's a pretty big tank at lighter. And if it sits in there too long, there is a chemical from the company they put in there, but it was breaking down because it sat so long. So he sucked it all out through a filter and put it back in. It happens from time to time with big tanks like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And my next question is for, I think Sebastian, but we'll see. Check numbers 60174 and 60178. The one check is for 190 iPads, and the other check is for 165 laptops. And it totaled 218,464. And I see these were bought out of CARES Act money. But my point is, or my question is, we bought iPads to equal enough iPads in the district. So when we went remote, that the kids could go remote. And we also bought laptops. My question is this a purchase to alleviate having to do the rotate of more iPads and laptops next year in the budget?
So it will help with that, but it wasn't the primary reason. The primary reason is that those 190 iPads that we are replacing, while they are still usable, they were starting to give us a lot of problems. They were about 10 years old, and they would need to be, I planned on replacing them within the next year. But this year, as we started our one-to-one program, we actually did start having a lot of issues with, the responsiveness of them, the usability, students being able to use particular apps. So that was a good opportunity for us to get those replaced right away.
Right, but the point I'm trying to make is, now that you've rotated some out that you hadn't planned on rotating out till next year, your budget should be smaller by this amount next year, correct?
I don't believe we'll see that reduction in budget because of other things, but we will not be spending on those iPads.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, then Brandy would take a roll call on that.
Mr. President. Mr. Albert,
Yes.
Dr. Beery,
Yes.
Mr. Conkle,
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Marriott,
Yes.
Dr. Mathers,
Yes.
Mr. Ruffing,
Yes.
Mr. Schimmel,
Yes,
Mr. Snell,
Yes.
and Mr. Ulmer.
Mr. Ulmer, yes.
All right, moving on to the business manager's report. At the January work session, I will be providing a review of the 1920 financials that were presented this evening by Larson Kellett. So we'll provide an overview of those. If you have questions, feel free to email me and I'll be sure to include them in the presentation. So if you see anything, please let me know that you'd like me to look at for you so I can have that ready. And in the current budget, we're continuing to watch the cyber charter schools. Enrollment has remained steady. So the projection that was provided to the board in November is still a pretty close projection on what we're estimating. And that included the outside of district cyber school and our own district cyber option, which was costing, was estimated to cost the district just over 1.4 million for this year. And I just, to remind you that we had budgeted 575,000. That this right now is still estimated to be short about 833,000, just to keep that in the back of everyone's mind where we're looking at the cyber and the Moyer online learning option this year. And another update would be another round of the federal COVID relief funds has been approved. ESSER funds are our estimated allocation is currently $954,256. Once we have more information on the exact amount, because this amount has changed since it came out a couple weeks ago. So the amount is not finalized. I wanted to make sure everyone understands that. But once we have a more exact amount, the time frame and when it will be available to us and exactly how it can be spent, we will be sharing that with the board. We are planning on reviewing the progress of the 2021-22 budget during the work sessions this year. In February, we'll be reviewing the revenues. In March, we'll be reviewing the expenditures. In April, we'll be looking at all the updates and making changes from the revenues and expenditures. During the month of May, we'll approve a proposed budget and make any necessary changes with a plan to approve the final budget at the June 8th board meeting. To provide you with a transportation update, on November 25th, 2020, Governor Wolf signed Senate Bill 1216, Act 136 of 2020. This legislation include a new subsection M.1 within section 1501.8, which created a modified calculation of the pupil transportation subsidy for the year 2021. Payable in the 21-22 fiscal year. The Pennsylvania Department of Education published the guidelines describing variable costs and providing clarification statutory requirements in late December. Mr. Toole here in the business office is currently working to gather the variable cost, and that will be presented to the board in the near future to keep that in mind. I also received several questions on item G1 on the agenda. Mr. Piper has been working on this. This allows the Educational Consortium for Telecommunications Savings to file E-rate applications on behalf of the district. We only pay for this service if we receive grant money. We previously used the IU for these services. Also this evening, we're asking the board to approve the Act 1 resolution this evening not to exceed the index of 3.8% or 0.63 mils. The administration is confident in working within the Act 1 restrictions for the 2021-2022 year. So we are asking that you pass this resolution that we will not exceed index. And now I'm going to provide a presentation on the bonds, which is a couple items on the agenda.
Randy, before you move to the bond, could I ask you a couple questions about what you just presented to us?
Sure.
One question, the monies that the 900,000 approximately that we'll be getting, could the board possibly get a list of when the district finds out where they can use that money? Could the board possibly get a list of where that money is going to be used, a broken down list? And so we know where the expenditures of those funds are going.
Yeah, we will be covering that with you. I can ask. I'm not sure exactly what that list includes at this point. All of it. It hasn't,
Okay.
I don't have a final copy yet.
Okay, well, they haven't let you know, the district yet know actually what it can be spent on yet, have they?
We have an idea, but it hasn't been clarified yet.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as we have something, we can, share it. Any other questions? Sorry, I'm making note of that. Okay. If there's no other questions on that, we can move on to the bond presentation. This tonight is a presentation on paying off the bond series of 2014 early. I had previously met with the board in an informational session and covered a lot of this information. It has been updated with the most recent numbers. So on tonight's agenda item, G4 is to pay off the bond series of 2014 early out of the Capital Reserve Fund. The bond payments scheduled for the remainder of the bond total just over 1.7 million. As you can see here, we have payments due in October of next year, and then April, and then the following October of 2022, April of 2023. Those total just over 1.7 million. And we have just under 5 million currently in the Capital Reserve account. We are recommending paying the remaining principal and current interest due out of the Capital Reserve Fund. But with doing that, the board needs to commit to making these payments still from the general fund to the Capital Reserve Fund on the original due date. And that is part of the agenda. It's resolution in G5. What that does is maintains the payment and allows to replenish the Capital Reserve account so that we have those funds available when we want to do a project or improvement on any of our buildings. So how this will look. This evening, the board approves the administration to call these bonds. On the 22nd, the principal and the current interest due is paid to the bank from the Capital Reserve Fund. Then when October comes, the payment that we would have made to the bank will be made to the Capital Reserve Fund. So we're paying ourselves back. And then in April, when that payment becomes due, we also then pay the Capital Reserve account back from the general fund. And we continue this process through the next 2 years to pay our Capital Reserve account back. And what this does is it pays the interest to ourselves. We are currently not making a lot of interest in this account, so we are not we're not making any money on our money. So it's best that we make our own money with our own interest. And with doing this, with this bond, we would be creating our own interest revenue of just under $42,000. So why do this? Exactly what I was just talking about. The interest payments are paid to the capital reserve fund. They're not being paid to the bondholders anymore. So that would save us about $42,000. Another reason is a better bond rating for the future. If you guys remember back in September of 2017, the district's S&P global rating was downgraded to an A from an A+. Hopefully this will get us back up and working back towards that A+ rating. It's just like a credit score. So a bond rating is like a credit score for us. And it still leaves money in the capital reserve fund to complete projects and improvements as we need. We are still building it. We're not dropping below 3 million, and we can still do the projects as needed. So the debt payment remains consistent in the annual budget when we continue paying back the capital reserve. So we are going to continue to watch the economy and determine if it'll be beneficial next year to come and ask to pay the 2015 bond payments off early. So I wanted to make everyone aware that we are going to continue watching these and possibly paying these off early. So next year we'll have 2.6 million still due on the 2015 bond payment. And we will have an estimated capital reserve balance of just under 4.5 million. So in May 2022, we may ask to pay the remaining principal, which at that point would be 1.38 million. Out of the capital reserve fund to keep this going. But at that time also, the board would also need to commit for these payments to be made from the general fund back to the capital reserve fund. So we're maintaining the capital reserve fund for the projects and the improvements that we need to have done. With the economy the way it is, it's just a good time to kind of make our own money and not be paying the interest to the bondholders. So what that would look like and how that would change is right here. It would stretch it out another year, and we would be saving in total with doing this with these two bonds about $72,000 in interest. So any questions from the board?
I really am very pleased that this is something that we can do now, that Brandy has taken this on for the district. This is something that I go back to. It sets our financial future up to be more stable in a very unstable economy as it moves forward nationally. And I don't mean us, I just mean as things occur economically over our nation, this is helping us for the long run. This is a very, very positive step in the right direction for paying down our debt, for saving taxpayers the interest money, for giving us a better bond rating. It is a win-win-win. So Brandy, thank you for doing this. I appreciate the time that you've invested in this, and for RBC and all of the things that they have helped with to get this done. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to ditto that. Thank you, Brandy, for the work that you've put into this and just the thought process of being forward thinking to save the district money and the taxpayers' money. So thank you.
Yep, for sure. Okay, board, if there's no questions for Brandy, then on that we'll allow her to conclude the business manager's report, and we'll move on now to the superintendent's report.
Fantastic. We do have some presentations by the principals this evening. So I would like to start with our newest member to the team, Dr. Amy Breon.
Thank you, Mrs. Basin and Board. So just run through kind of some of the highlights that have been going on at Loyalsock Valley in the month of December. Again, our hearts are filled with all the holiday outpouring that we have from not only our faculty and our staff, but from the outpour from the community to just provide some enriched holiday experiences for our children. So we had about 20 baskets going out with meals for families to have a holiday meal together. And on the written report, you can see all the different organizations and folks that contributed towards that. As well, we had some elves that were busy with angel trees and, you know, as I said, just adopting children's names to go out and, you know, shop for them and make it just a very different holiday season than perhaps it might have been previously for that particular child. So it's always, as I've come to the Valley, it's one of those things that brings a big smile to my face each year because of the way the community responds to it. So, you know, thank you for all that was done there from everybody involved. We put together our Pride Matrix to go home for our positive school-wide behavior support for families over the break, just trying to provide them with some consistency and language so that, you know, they can talk to their children about, I know you practice kindness at school, so we expect you to practice kindness at home. And here are some things you can do at home to reinforce that. So I was really proud of the team and their efforts to get that out quickly when we went remote, you know, and put that in the hands of the parents as, you know, an extra support to our families as, you know, their children are at home with them for more extended periods of time. So kudos to that team and the work that they put into that. And finally, we were able to pull off a kind of last minute, a drive-through contactless Santa scene. So we were able to provide Santa, Mrs. Claus, and several elves. And so we had about, I estimated 125 of our students come through that night in their cars and, you know, wave, and Santa spoke through the window to them and, you know, took their wish list, some handed off some letters to them. So again, just a really wonderful time to see the smiles on our students' faces and to connect with them again. And a special shout out, wink, wink, to Mr. Brad Holmes from the middle school in his role and participation in that. So thank you.
I think Mrs. Claus was very excited to be there as well.
Yes, she was.
It might have been a little cold, but I do think that she was more excited than some of the children. So
I've heard that too from a good source.
Yes, I agree. Well, Mr. Farrar could not join us this evening. He has been excused, so I would like to go to Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mrs. Basin. Good evening, everyone. So good to not only hear the bell yesterday, but to see the students in the hallways and the classes back in-person instruction. I want to thank the parents and students and our staff during the remote learning, remaining positive and flexible. Our attendance during the remote learning opportunities remained pretty steady. So we had the help from the teachers and the students and the staff, really just trying to do the best that we can in that situation. So I want to thank everyone's support with that. It's great to see some of our sporting teams here in the winter with the basketball and cheerleading and wrestling back at it. I want to point out about our Harvest of Hope backpack program. As you are aware, we help within the district 150 families with our backpack program, and want to thank the Builders Club and the Student Council for their help around the holidays with that. And just to point out, the Builders Club, they're always trying to do several volunteer activities. So during this pandemic, they're having some challenges with volunteer activities. So they've asked if you are aware of anything that they can do to get their hours. They have 15 personal hours that they have to complete, as well as 15 club hours. So they're looking for volunteer activities. And I think looking forward to working with the high school staff, Mr. T's crew, and then the elementary staff with scheduling, fourth graders coming up to fifth grade, working on some sort of program with them, and our eighth graders transitioning to the high school. So be interesting in that scheduling process for next year. So it's hard to believe it's January and we're thinking about that. But we again, from the middle school staff, we appreciate all your support.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mr. Taramino.
Sure. I just want to clarify. I think Mr. Notho has embarrassed me. Did you say the generators exercise every Friday?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I'm really embarrassed. It's one more day than I exercised per week, so I better get in gear. So I guess on with my report. Before the holidays, and I think my colleagues can echo this feeling. I often feel like the Grim Reaper when I'm making phone calls anymore, telling kids they can't come to school because they're quarantined or excluded. But I do want everyone to know we take that job very seriously right now, especially with the case counts in the county. And we do it because of we have so many families and graduates in the district that are healthcare workers and rely on us to continue to do their jobs to make sure we're doing our tracing correctly and that our families are honest when they're sending kids to school or keeping them home. So an appreciation to our healthcare workers, both graduates and families within the district that are doing an incredible job. My thoughts turn to them when I have that Grim Reaper feeling. So really appreciate the efforts they're putting forth in this difficult time. Mrs. Klein stole the thunder on the academic decathlon, third place out of 8 teams. The cool thing about that is they did that from home. They weren't in a group together. It was all done remote while we were remote. So kudos to that crew for increasing their placing at the competitions. And we had several scores, several medals. Christian Smith had a gold in economics, silver in music and science, and a silver medal for overall score. In the scholastic division, Paul Yoon had a silver in economics and a bronze in science. In the varsity division, Eddie Brown had a gold in economics, a silver in music, and a silver medal for overall score. Sarah Klein had a bronze in music, and Zach Smith had a bronze in music. So congratulations to those students. They continue marching on, whether we're remote or in person, they continue to compete. So an example of Warriors marching on there. Some good news during these difficult times are remote days. Obviously, we'll want our kids in school. In person is the best, but the high school experienced 15 total days of remote learning prior to and after the holiday. I want to say I am incredibly proud of our kids and our faculty and staff for just an amazing job during remote. It is the best thing we have done to date when we can't be in person. I'd made up my mind if we had to go remote, we were going to try this. And I can tell you I'm relieved it worked. We were able to stay relevant and important in our students' daily lives. I also want to send out a huge thank you to the parents for helping us make that work too. Having that daily schedule to look at, point to, and have their kids get on, I think was helpful at home as well. So I will leave you with this stat to give you an idea of how good this works. And I know it wasn't perfect. I think we had an internet outage the first day when the elementary and middle school went. We had power outages, 2 feet of snow. But again, I believe it was the best thing we've done outside of in person. So during that 15 days of remote instruction, we held students accountable for attendance. We required them to follow that schedule and get on Zoom or Google Meet sessions. And we kept our operations internally as if students were still showing up to the building. Because of that, we had a 94.5% attendance rate at the high school. We had some days that were better than the first days of school that we've had in the past, where maybe 11 kids were out. So that really shows that this did not happen by accident. This was a community at work making education important, and hats off to everybody involved. So it is not easy. That was a challenge beyond challenges, but we made it work. So well done by all. The next thing I have, some more good news. Fall sports donations. If you remember, we put out the cans at the ticket booths to collect money. Thanks to the generous support of our parents, we raised $1,294 through their donations. That was split out. Boys soccer was $125, girls soccer was $98. The Booster Club General Fund was $357. The choir boosters, $357, and the band boosters, $357. So thank you to everybody that contributed. Every little bit helps, especially when we've lost so much in revenues through the concession stands and other things that are sold at games, 50-50. That helps offset some of those losses. So thank you. We're still working on the concert recording. That date's going to be January 20th. Not sure when we're going to stream that yet, but it will be soon after. The middle school is going to record from 5:30 to 7, and the high school is going to be 7 to 8:30. We do have several donations to cover those costs, so thanks to those folks as well. And finally, again, it's hard to find wins during COVID school. During the remote session, Geisinger pulled the plug on our program. They are not going to take our kids this year because of COVID. Upsetting because of how much we've invested in getting that program running. The good news is, however, Penn College, through Steve Tressler, Morgan Fenstermacher, Rhonda Albert, some people really got together, figured things out. We're going to be offering that class as an EMT program now through Penn College. So students will leave the high school one day a week to get their hands on EMT training. There's some online coursework that they'll do back here at the building at the high school. And at the end of it, they can take an exam and be a certified EMT. So out of lemons, we made some pretty good lemonade. And we're excited to be able to offer that opportunity to those kids that had something taken from them. So once again, we're continuing to find ways to do this through COVID. Working harder than ever. And I echo what Mr. Myers said. It was great having a building full of kids again. It was a very empty feeling coming back from the holidays to emptiness. So the 11th was wonderful. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. To just try and understand everything that all of these folks who are our staff, from Joe's staff and the custodial and maintenance, to Michelle's staff, to all of the building staff, to our teachers and our secretaries. I know all of you feel COVID at this point. You know what it has done for you, and it's not fun some days. But I will say that I am so proud to be a part of this team who has dealt with COVID issues day in and day out. I don't know that we've talked about much else for the past 9 months other than COVID. So when you're hearing these things emerging, know the hours of time that parents have put in, that students have put in, that our staff has put in, making this possible. We are looking at brand new, innovative ways of being educators. Whether you're a parent as an educator, whether you're a professional as an educator, and whether you're working in the buildings to support the educational process. And as part of my report, I would like to say that we are finally speaking about professional development and what we need to do moving forward. We're starting to move away from that. We're hearing other comments and things about pins again, which we never thought we would like to hear, but we actually are very excited to be getting back to some of the things that we really needed to be focused on. And some of those things are a new math series at the elementary level, making sure that we have more MTSS supports, looking at STEM. There's so many different things that we need to, again, as we have learned to adjust to this and handle this and carry these in our hands, we now know how to be picking up and doing that with all of the other activities. I would like to say that we do have unsung heroes in our leadership team, in our principals, and in our business office and special ed. And Joe, I thank them too, because without their innovation and motivation and inspiration, not much occurs. So I do want to say thank you to them as well.
And with that, Christina, would you then, if you're ready to lead us through the agenda items?
Sure. May I have a consent on G1 through G6?
Move to approve.
Second.
Do we, Fred, do we just do a consensus on that, or do we need a vote?
You don't need, you need a vote, but it does not have to be a roll call vote. As long
Okay.
as it can be identified who voted yes and no.
Okay, all right, so we have that motion to do G1 through G6 in a block. So we have first and a second, and I guess in that case, any questions or other discussion about that? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it.
G7, approval to eliminate posting on YouTube.
We have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Plenty of discussion. I am totally against eliminating board meetings posted on YouTube. While I hesitate to say I'm against putting the public comments on YouTube, I do understand the implications of the legalities, because during heated moments, there are community members, parents that say things and divulge student information that shouldn't be made public. So while I am hesitant to say that public comment should be eliminated also, I think to keep the district in a position where they don't have a legal battle on their hands, I would be okay with stopping public comment from being posted on YouTube. But as far as the board meeting, the entire board meeting, other than public comment, I feel should be posted on YouTube like it has been, minus the public comment, because there are parents, taxpayers, constituents, community members, however you want to put it, that there are times where they can't join the meeting live, and we do post the meeting minutes on our website, but the meeting minutes are done at the very minimum of what the law applies. And for somebody to read them minutes, it's hard for anybody to know what really went on in a board meeting. And an example is Mr. Snell asked such and such a question and Mrs. Basin answered. That's not telling anybody what Mrs. Basin said to Mr. Snell's question. That's why I feel that they should continue to be on YouTube. I think that the motion should be changed to approval to eliminate posting the public comments from the school board meetings on YouTube. But as far as the board meetings, they should continue to be on YouTube. That's all I have.
I could provide a little, I guess could have provided a little background for the public. The district almost inadvertently or accidentally, I guess, was made aware that when the district does post and basically rebroadcasts by putting it on YouTube and allows the rebroadcast of certain comments that really we don't have the right to have that information rebroadcast. And some of the information that some of the things that have been said truly are problematic. I mean, if someone wanted to push the issue, we maybe be a little hot water for quote unquote rebroadcasting. So we're discussing especially that idea of staying within our legal bounds and removing exposure of the district, legal exposure. The motion is, reads as eliminating all of YouTube, but I can guarantee you there'll be lots of discussion and deliberation as we work through this issue. So we have that motion in the second. Let's continue some discussion on this item.
So yeah, would it be like a friendly amendment then to clarify, to say, I don't know, so I'm just making this up, but like, continue to post with edited public comments edited out, maybe for a default period of 6 months, unless individually specified for specific meetings, because I know it came up in exact kind of how long they would be up there. So could that all just be done in like a friendly amendment kind of thing?
Well, I think if we get too many things tagged on to it, it's probably more than friendly, and it needs to be, the initial motion would get withdrawn and we'd craft something. But as far as the timing of how far back we would go and that kind of thing, is that something that maybe we could develop the policy for what we'll do, and then once that policy is passed, we'll retroactively go back and maybe just sort of hone in on what are we going to do from tonight moving forward with our
I hesitate highly of putting the word policy together with YouTube. It is not a necessity, and I want to make sure that our policies are covering the legal necessities that we have. So I would hesitate to say policy with the word YouTube.
I would like to make a motion to
Well,
amend. I would like to make a motion to amend the G7 to say approval to eliminate posting the public comments from the school board meetings on YouTube.
Fred, do we amend that motion, or will we be better off just withdrawing it and starting over?
Well, there's a couple ways to go about this. The mover and seconder could agree to what Ron has suggested as an amendment to the motion. If they don't agree to that, then you would have to give a second to the motion to amend to see whether the board as a whole would amend it. I guess the first step would be to see whether the mover and seconder would agree to amend the motion as currently set forth.
Okay.
Could I get somebody to second my motion?
Yeah, I would second it, Ron.
Okay, so we have a motion in the second to amend the original G7 to clarify that we will strip the public comment sessions or sections from the YouTube minutes, if you will. YouTube
Dave.
recordings.
Dave, I'm not sure if we might need to have, since the motion changed, we might have to see if there's any public comment on that motion also before we vote on it. I mean, we have a first and a second, but before we take the actual vote on my motion, we probably should have to see if the public needs to comment.
I do not think that that's necessary from a legal standpoint.
Oh, okay.
And we certainly had some concise comment from the public at the beginning too. All right, so we have motion second on that amendment. Any more discussion on that amendment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Well, I have one question. Will
Go
we
ahead.
then further talk about how long these stay up on YouTube?
Well, why don't we set a practice and then let's look backwards and forwards on timing? I mean, can we kind of keep them separate just for housekeeping purposes?
Okay.
Okay.
I think the ones that we put on YouTube without public comment, they can stay there indefinitely. I mean, it's not hurting anything, and anybody that wants to go back in time to research something would be able to do so. And since there's no public comment on there, it wouldn't hurt the district in any way.
Yeah, and that's another discussion maybe we can have as part and parcel of this whole G7 thing. But right now we want to have a vote on amending the original G7 motion to eliminate postings. And we're clarifying that it's eliminating the public comment sections for reasons discussed. So all in favor of amending that original motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so we have that motion amended. Now we'll go back to voting on that reconstructed motion, if you will. Any additional discussion on that that motion as it stands?
Yeah, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, and I'm in agreement with Ron on that. I'm in favor of the transparency angle of this. By eliminating the posting on YouTube of public comment, is that all we need to eliminate from our board meetings so as to insulate the district from any possible legal actions? Will that protect us fully? That's a question, I suppose, for Fred.
Well, we certainly, one thing about us, when we say something, you know, we as board members could, you know, put the district in a bad way. So there's always caution on our part as to what we say. So really the only people left speaking are going to be administration and the board. But Fred, go ahead.
Well, yes, it would eliminate the republication issue with respect to public comments. It would not eliminate republication in the event that there were problematic comments that violated HIPAA, FERPA, or that were defamatory that were made by administrators or board members. I certainly think that there is far less possibility of any claims with respect to those things, but it would certainly not eliminate all possible republication liability.
And if we as the district say things that we shouldn't, we own it anyway, correct? It's our mistake, if you will. So we would essentially have that right to rebroadcast because it's us. It's our,
But
it's
if
our
it
material.
violates HIPAA or FERPA, that's someone else's.
Well, that's our exposure.
information.
That's our exposure if we don't do it right.
Once you say it, it's too late to take it back, whether you post it on YouTube or not.
Well, I disagree slightly. Once a statement is made, there's a statute of limitations that starts to run with respect to anybody that wants to complain about it. If it's republished every day on YouTube, the statute of limitations starts running again every day.
But I think the message for us as the board and the district as a whole is we just, you know, we need to be careful and measured in what we say and how we say it. That's all. I mean, you know, it's part of our fiduciary responsibility that we don't cost the district money by saying something we shouldn't. So, right.
Right, but if someone says something about a kid with an IEP, I mean, that's not just, I mean, I assume we wouldn't do that, but that's not just impacting us, that's potentially impacting.
But that's why we hire a solicitor to stop us from making those mistakes. That's what his job is.
Yeah. And that's why
All
there's
right,
people.
Dave. Yeah, thank you. Fred answered the question. I should have been a little more specific with my question. So if I understand what we say is can put us at risk, but yeah, thank you. And thank you, Fred.
Yeah, and if we have occurrences where it causes us concern, that's why we have a solicitor. We'll get his advice and counsel on what we can do if we've inadvertently maybe said something we shouldn't have. So, okay. So with that, then I guess we're ready to vote on this reconstructed motion. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, Dave, while we're on this subject, I'd like to make a motion to put this all to bed. I'd like to make a motion that any YouTube videos that are up now on YouTube of our board meetings that have public comment on, to, as time permits, I would like to make the motion to have public comment deleted from those board meetings that are now on YouTube.
Okay. Would, as a predecessor to that, do we want to go back in time like 1 or 2 years or something like that and remove 2 or 3 year old ones, or do you have a time frame in mind or not?
I think that eventually they all need to be, the public comment needs to be removed from all of them. But as time permits, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight.
The attorneys were very clear, though, with us that, especially Richard and Fred, I'll let you hop in on this one too, that the purpose of having these, and I know, Ron, you and I have discussed, you know, here, that the purpose of having these is to help the public if they could not get to the meeting, but they should not live in infinitum forever and ever. So, and to ask the staff to go back and try to sit and not know when public comment starts and ends in a video, you'll spend all of their time doing that for videos that are over a year old. And I would say that that's really a fruitless way of spending someone's time to do that.
Could we archive them and then they would be available by request of someone, and so that only those dates requested needed to be cleaned or something? Like, could we archive them in the school after whatever, 6 months, 8 months, a year, and then only clean any that were requested?
What is supposed to happen? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The problem with that is, and I've brought it up before, that it's not just for the public because they couldn't make the meeting at any given time when there was a meeting. It's also for anybody, board members included, that see something coming up that they want to research back on other times when policy was made, when a decision, some kind of decision was made. They need to be able to do that.
Well, and I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, could we save it in a different digital form off of YouTube so that, you know, if you know you wanted to.
That is the purpose of having official minutes. The purpose of having those official minutes, and, you know, Ron has a point with the official minutes. He brought that up earlier too, but the official minutes are what the district is required to keep. And those are the minutes I would hope that if we have an issue, for example, I think we brought up a feasibility study, the comments about feasibility studies, that would be in the minutes I understand, that would be one that we certainly would want to keep those things out there for public consumption. So I think my problem is this: asking the staff to sit there and try to spend time going through a YouTube and trying to pick and choose public comments and take them out and put them back in for years worth of meetings is not a good use of their time. They're educators. They need to be in the buildings. We need to be working with our kids. And there's only 2 tech staff. So, it would be.
I have to agree with what you're saying, Christina. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have to agree with what you're saying, that the time well spent. The other point I want to bring up is we haven't had a community member, anybody have a problem up to this point with anything that was disclosed on any public comment period. So I think that since we haven't had anything come up to this point, let's let it ride then. Let's let it ride, and just because I am against deleting all those videos.
But I'm also against letting it ride, Ron. We were told, and it has been told to us at this point, we cannot do that. Fred, you want to step in here on that one?
Well, my question would be is how many of us as board members have gone back and looked at any of the YouTube meetings that are on there in the last year? Raise your hands if you went back and looked at it.
Once in a
Or
while.
say yes.
Yeah, I have.
Bits and pieces. Never a whole thing.
My recommendation is to not preserve them for more than 6 months to a year at the most.
Well, okay. Ron has a motion to sanitize them, if you will, and remove public comments because of that liability issue. Let's segregate the time frame as another discussion issue, and let's hone in on Ron's motion to remove those public comments, because I think we agree that should be done. Then let's deal then with how far back we want to have the videos kept on publicly available. So
Perhaps, Dave, it should be reversed. Perhaps we should make the determination of time and then look to sanitize, Ron.
Well, we're going to sanitize no matter what. So, we're going to, I think, make those decisions tonight. So whether we say 6 months, 18 months, whatever it is, that has to be done as soon as it could be done. So, yeah, I agree. There's logic to what you said there, but we're gonna tackle the whole thing tonight.
I think they should just all come down right now as we know our liability. And then as administration has the time in this COVID environment where they are overwhelmed and busy already, then they can start putting them back up according to the time frame that we decide that we want them back up. But I would like to see them taken down now because they've got those comments on it. And I know there's comments on there that are against FERPA, and at least FERPA anyway. So it would be much easier for them just to delete it at this point, and then as they have time to go back and put the
And you
important
have a
ones up.
recommendation. And I really like that, Dottie. I think that provides a solution right now, because my thought was, if the board does not follow Fred's recommendation of 6 months and they decide something different, now you're putting administrators in the liability issue the same way, because immediately they should be taken down. So I really like the suggestion of doing that.
Okay, but any board meeting that is on YouTube from here on out, and after those start getting put back on, should not have a time limit on how long they're on. They should be on in infamy forever.
And so that's why we have two separate issues. Ron's motion to have this YouTube videos sanitized of public comment. That's out there. Do we have a second on that? because we've had lots of discussion without a second. Fred, I can second that, right?
I thought Sue
Thought I
seconded.
did.
Oh, you did? Oh, thank you, Sue. All right. Okay, all right, so lots of discussion.
And so I guess sanitize from this point forward, obviously, and the old ones taken, I mean, is that what we're?
We're gonna take it a step at a time. We agree in principle, YouTube videos need sanitized to public comments because of legal guidance we've received. So we're voting on that. And the next step is, let's dive into how far back, how soon, right now, when. So let's put that off to the side. Let's deal with Ron's motion. So all in favor to, in principle, sanitize these videos of public comment for liability reasons. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. All right, discussion on time frame. What do
Dave,
you want to do?
Dave,
Scott.
this is Scott. I make a motion that we post, go for our solicitor's advice, do it for 1 year. We leave them posted for 1 year and then they come down after 1 year. I make that motion.
Scott, but we also have the issue of they're up there right now, and there's concern that the ones that are up there now present a liability. Do you want to roll anything into that motion in terms of remove them and then add your time frame?
Sure. So let's remove them for now. Save for 1 year, get everything out. It's public comment, and then repost the last year whenever they get the time frame to get them done.
Well, did Fred say 1 year, 6 months?
Fred said 6 months.
Oh,
He said
okay.
either. 6
Either
months to a
or, he
year.
said.
Yeah, he said 6 months to a year. So we have Scott's motion that will put a one year time frame on retaining them in the public venue, and that the sanitizing will be done as soon as possible.
Well, and you could even do like sanitize most recent first, because I mean, you don't necessarily.
I think the administration can, that's a detail they can do. They're pretty bright people. So do we have a second on?
I want under discussion. Go ahead, Dottie.
Does this include taking them down now? Right,
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And then putting them back up sanitized?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, additional discussion.
And thank you. Thank you for doing that, because again, these are board videos. Now you're saying the administration is responsible for sanitizing them. So without having Dottie and Scott say, take them all down, that would put administrators at risk. And I don't think that that would be fair to do to administrators, especially since they're board videos. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, additional discussion, any questions? We have the 1 year retention schedule for public YouTube videos.
1 year after they're posted, correct?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're only talking 2 or 3 days at most, so. Okay, if there's no additional discussion, then all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. I think we figured that out, I hope. All right, moving on.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we did. Thank you very much. All right. P1, approval of the extension of a professional employment contract, including tenure, to the following member of the professional staff who completed 3 years of satisfactory service on a temporary professional contract. And that would be Mr. Dan Heinrichs in the science department at the high school.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
May I please have a consent motion for P2 to P5?
Move to approve.
Second.
It just a little sidebar here, Fred, when we were putting these as a block, I interpreted it as just a consent motion to block them together, and then we would vote on them. But you're saying just that having that consent, unless somebody objects to that consent to block them, we're moving forward with them as a block, correct?
Yes, it's a motion for all 4 of those items at the same time, right?
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have the motion for P2 to P4. I think we had a motion in the second. Questions or anything? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Under Transportation, T1, approval for Promised Land busing rates in the amount of $2,529.43 for December 2020.
Good motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Under Policy PY1, approval of the first and final reading of the following revised policies: 006 for meetings and 903 public participation in board meetings.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
Quick question, Dave. There's a, on the 006, when it covers work sessions, it states that the meeting will be held in the school library, the high school library. That just needs to be scrubbed or, changed to read the boardroom. It's a very small thing.
Good catch.
Thank you, Dylan.
And
Thank you. Good catch.
And my second question is, in the last sentence for 903, it says the public and press will have access to the agenda and other documentation. Does the other documentation refer to the attachments that are part of the agenda? Because
That was
right
written
now,
into
we
the-
don't include the attachments, so.
Right. That was written into the policy from 2004. And I believe what that meant was any kind of documentation, if we were questioned about something, that we would provide under the right to know without having them request a right to know. That would be my interpretation of what that meant.
Okay, Fred, do we need to be more specific? Because I'm not disagreeing with that, but I do think it does still, well, it left it open in my mind for interpretation.
Where is that, Dale? What section?
It's the last sentence of that policy 903.
The meeting agenda and all pertinent documents shall be distributed to the press and public at the meeting.
It's my opinion that as a general rule, the public should be entitled to be able to get copies of non-confidential items that are provided to the board.
I think what.
Okay,
We have a-
there's something I wanted to bring up and that has to do with what Dale just brought up. If you look on page 3/8, at the very bottom under agenda, it has the agenda together with all relevant reports shall be provided each school director at least 3 days before the meeting. At the same time, the agenda is provided to each school director. An agenda not containing the attachments shall be posted on the district's publicly accessible website. It goes on to say agenda attachments required by law to be made available to the public will be provided to interested parties who make a request at least 10 days in advance of the meeting from the board secretary or business manager. If that request needs to be made 10 days in advance of the meeting, how can anybody make that request when they're only seeing the agenda 3 days before the board meeting?
I took that to mean that they're going to ask proactively. They're going to say, I want to know all the attachments, you know.
If they want to see the attachments, they don't know what attachments to request till they see the agenda.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like it's a presumptive thing where they're going to be asking 10 days in advance for the whole packet, even though we won't know what it is until 3 days before, but they'll eventually get it as long as they ask 10 days in advance. To me, that 10 days in advance is almost unnecessary, because under right to know, they can ask for the darn thing anytime. So, I mean, that is almost, to me, that almost doesn't need to be there.
And they can ask, you're right, Dave, they can ask under right to know anything that has been approved by the board, yes.
But they don't, if they want to see that attachment before the board meeting, under the way this is wrote, it's impossible for them to know. It's impossible for them to know what the attachment, what attachments they're going to have to request.
And again, that was in here from 2004. So I do wonder if, because that was prior to, was it prior to Right to Know? I don't remember quite when Right to Know came into being, but we do, I understood, I thought that we made the attachments public after the board voted on them. And anyone can, now that there is Right to Know, which I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, and you might have to help me on this one, Fred, I don't think Right to Know was in place in 2004, which would go back to what Dottie and Dave are thinking about public and getting copies of things ahead of time. They would want them ahead of time like that. But now they have full rights and access to any kind of public document that the board has voted on.
But it's pretty close as to when Right to Know. I just don't remember the year either, whether it was 2004 or not. But I think the fundamental problem is that Right to Know requires the production of the documents within 5 days. And if the agenda is produced within 3 days, how do we deal with legitimate requests from the public to say, I want to have the backup information that is subject to Right to Know Act, and I'd like to have it prior to the meeting.
I believe Right to Know doesn't give them the option until it's voted on.
It depends. If it's a public record, and public record is broadly defined, oftentimes those things that are provided are public records, even though the board has not voted on it yet. So there would be some that are public records and some that aren't. Frankly, I think it's not a matter that should really be decided upon tonight, because it's not one of the items that is the change that was suggested in the agenda. I think it probably bears deliberate study by the administration, first of all, to determine, do we want to change those provisions that are being questioned at this time? And is there a better way to deal with those things? But I don't think that should be something that we try to work out tonight, because it hasn't been considered in the past.
The only thing I got left to say about this is it doesn't do the public any good to get to look at the attachments after a vote's already been made. They need to be able to look at the attachments before the vote's made, so they know if they want to speak on that agenda item or not. And the other thing is, which has to do with tonight, is on the first page where it says the overall length of public comment period will normally be 45 minutes or less In the event that the chair determines that the public comment period should be lengthened, the chair may allow an additional 15 minutes for public comment. In the absence of such a ruling by the chair, the board may by majority vote approve a motion for extension of the public comment period by 15 minutes. I am against putting a noose around the public's neck and pulling them off the stage when they have something to say. Also, where on the second page, where it says no participant may speak more than once on the same topic, be it crossing out unless all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. I think that needs to stay in there. I think the public, a lot of times they may speak on a subject, a topic, somebody else may speak and it might trigger something that they want to add to their statements. And finally, on page 3/8, where it says regular board meetings shall be 2 hours in duration. If the meeting of the board is not concluded by the end of the 2-hour period, the meeting may be extended for one 30-minute period by majority consent of the board members present. No further extension of time shall be permitted. It is my belief that an elected official, which we all are, if you don't want to spend the time needed to satisfy your constituents, the public, and the taxpayers, then maybe you should resign, because I will not support limiting the time of board meetings.
Board additional discussion? Does the policy committee want to reevaluate some of these things, or would you like to go with the first reading tonight?
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, there has to be a limit on these meetings. We did this before. I am in favor of a 2-hour limit, and I'll tell you why. Our marathon meeting in October that went 7.5 hours, I'm going to estimate 5 to 5.5 hours of that was public comment. And what that turned into is it went from public comment to a question and answer session, to discussions, to arguments, to people calling in a second and third time. That's just not necessary. We got to keep these meetings moving. I haven't talked to one person that stayed up till 2:25 a.m. that morning and said, hey, that was a lot of fun. I wish you guys would have more meetings like that. No, nobody. And that includes me. As a member of the policy committee, some years back in 2013, or 14, 15, 16, we had a limit. We had a 2-hour limit and then a half-hour extension with a unanimous vote of the board. Sadly, we had one board member who every time would vote no, and the meeting was over. I think this is very fair. I think it keeps things moving. I don't really think the public, when they join our meeting, want to sit here for 4 or 5 hours because things go off topic. I just think you got to run an efficient meeting, keep it moving. If people want to speak for 5 minutes on an agenda item, they'll certainly sign up first. And then I just think that, I think that 3 minutes is plenty. Not to mention, first of all, I don't care how long the meeting goes. I'll stay here till midnight. I'm fine with that. But we have staff and we have administrators that have to sit in these meetings, and they have to get up the next day and go to work too, just like so many of the members of the public. And I just believe that you stay on topic and don't go off track and don't get into Q&A sessions and don't get into discussions that ultimately end up going nowhere, that 2 hours and possibly 2.5 hours is more than enough time to conduct the business. So, you know, that's my take on it. I think this is fair. Thank you.
And I don't think we are limiting the public comment. Public can always email us. They can always email the superintendent. They can always get their answers, their questions answered, or give us more feedback later on as they want to. So I'm in favor with what Bill said.
I'm kind of between.
Maybe we should go back and look at some YouTube videos. First, maybe we ought to relook at taking them down after a year, because if we go back and look at some YouTube videos, we'll see the fight that was made by some board members to give the public and other board members as much time as would needed, that there would be no limit on the length of board meetings. Now all of a sudden, we want to stop it. No, I disagree.
Hey, Ron.
Dave, I say let's
Yeah,
just
I
go
wanna
with the
respond.
first reading. Let's take the vote and move on.
All right, so we have the first reading before us. So does anybody have anything additional, in way of discussion?
I'm in between both of you, because I mean, I remember one before I was elected to the board at the Valley about the 31 building that went to I wouldn't mind a comment about like extreme situation, I mean, that was one that I think needed to go to 11 p.m. or midnight, but you're right. There are a lot of them where they, like Bill said, we end up discussing a lot of things and so I don't know. I'm between both of you guys.
Fred, I have a question.
And I just want to bring to everybody's attention, Dave, this isn't just the first reading. This is the first and final reading.
Ah, you're right. I totally missed that. I thought we would have a second reading. Okay. Fred, question for you. Doesn't the board have the option of actually suspending a policy in the middle of a meeting, where you could actually do a technical workaround of a policy? If something demanded you do it, you could essentially suspend a board meeting policy if there was some basis for it?
No, I don't think you could do that.
Okay, all right. So you couldn't do an emergency or whatever vote to waive the certain policy under the circumstances?
No, I think that the reason you enact the policy is because you want it to be applicable, and you could, for the future, amend the policies or suspend the policies, but I don't think you could do it for the meeting in which the circumstance occurs.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what we have is we have the motion, the second. This is the first and final reading. This will become the policy. So that's what we will be voting on now. So if there's no additional
Can I propose
discussion.
a friendly amendment, or that's not allowed? Like, I would be able, could we add one additional 30-minute with majority consent? Because if no one wants it, everyone's going to say no and it'll end, but it would give us that option.
Who had the motion second? There's the suggestion on adding an additional 30 minutes if.
There's already an additional 30 minutes, correct?
True.
You can just go ahead and vote on it, Dave. That's fine.
Okay. All right. With that, then let's see. Yeah, all in favor.
Roll call vote, please.
You want a roll call? Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Mr. Albert,
Yes.
Dr. Berry,
Oh, sorry, I'm going to say no.
Mr. Kunkel,
Yes.
Mrs. Marriott,
Yes.
Dr. Mathers,
Yes.
Mr. Ruffing,
Yes.
Mr. Schimmel,
No.
Mr. Snell,
No.
Mr. Ulmer.
Mr. Elmore, yes.
Motion passes. All right, moving on to budget and financing.
Under BY1, acknowledgement of the Montoursville Area School District's financial statements for the year ending June the 30th of 2020, as well as the related audit report from Larson, Kellett and Associates. It is acknowledgement. It is not a motion. So it's just the acknowledgement that you have read it. We've had what we've needed to have to fulfill the obligations of the single audit. Under academics A1, approval of an agreement regarding a waiver of expulsion hearing and stipulations for student number 212800.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
And that concludes the agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
On to other reports, and Madam Vice President, would you walk us through those committee reports?
Be happy to. Start off with PSBA, and PSBA is hosting a free informational session on 2 different dates with 2 different times for members of the public that may be interested in running for the local school board. Not just us, but all around. Registration is required, and the sessions are going to be held virtually using Zoom, and all are welcome to attend just to find out about the role of school board directors and the election process. So this is being held on Thursday, January 21st, and Monday, January 25th at 2 different times. So if anybody is interested,
Well, looks like we lost, must be that cable running out Route 87 has gone down again. So Dottie, when you can join us back again, if you can hear me, I guess I'll pick it up from there. Moving on
would you know of anybody
to,
that's
okay, Dottie, you with us? No, it dropped out, Dottie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got the
hear
announcement
me?
on the how to run for school board on those dates, and then it dropped out after that.
Okay, can you hear me now? Am I
Yes.
back?
Yeah.
Okay, just, if anybody knows of anybody that's interested, send them my way and I'll give them the information. And it should be in the newspaper as well. Okay, so then we're on to policy committee. Mr. Ruffing, do you have anything else to add?
No, Dr. Mathers, thank you. But I'd just like to give an overview of everything that was discussed tonight regarding policies. Okay, I'm kidding. No, we've covered everything on policy. Okay, I don't think we need to have any more discussion on policies. And the IU, that's mine also. The next one, nothing to really report on the IU. They've already made the decision that our meetings will be remote at least through June. And the early childhood intervention program for the youngsters 3 to 5 years old, that's back in person now. So that's a good thing. But other than that, nothing really earth shaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schimmel, anything on LCTC?
We meet next Thursday, but the discussions regarding bringing Benton School District into the fold will continue, and what that modification to the charter will look like. So that's a process that'll be going on.
Okay. Mr. Conkle, anything with Memorial Gardens in this cold of winter?
No report. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ulmer, budget?
Just want to thank Brandy for all the work she's been doing with the bond and working with our auditors. Looking forward in 2 weeks, we should begin looking at our budget by looking back at what happened last year.
Okay. Mr. Albert, Building and Grounds.
Just nothing other than shout out to just the staff and everyone who's been working hard on keeping the schools clean and doing what they need to do there. And you know, it's good to see the kids back in school. That's it.
Sure is. Mr. Ulmer, back to you for the foundation.
No report.
Okay. Mr. Conkle, anything on extracurricular?
Nope, just good to see the kids back doing some sports here for the winter.
Back to you, Mr. President.
Okay. Well, this time
Mr.
we'll,
Schiller.
yes.
Again, this year, I've requested from you to be put on the budget and the policy committees. I'm guessing that you've denied my request again.
I'm not sure when you asked me about either of those this year. But I didn't hear any requests this year. However, the budget committee is a committee of the whole. We don't have an individual budget committee of 3 people. We're going to do it this year the same way we did it last year. And Mr. Ulmer is the budget chair, and he's one that we can go to ask questions, get information. We always are welcome to go to Brandy to ask questions and get information. So that's how I plan to run it this year. And as far as the policy committee, that committee, I sent out the note to the 3 of them saying, I assume you're willing to serve. I didn't hear anything from you. So that it is what it is. So,
sir, I actually sent you an email. When you first sent out that email, I replied back to you and requested again.
It was too late. It was too late. I'd already said to those 3 people, I assume you're willing to serve. So you should have beat me to the punch.
That's what you get for assuming, I guess.
No, that's what you get for being late, waiting to ask. Don't expect me to ask you. You ask me and I'll respond to you, but it's too late. That committee was already constituted by my email. All right. This time we'll do public comment on any school district related matters. Again, comment on school business. We certainly don't want to have comments on personnel type things, on sensitive issues, on those kind of things. So comments on maybe what's going on. We always appreciate positive comments. Anything on the agenda tonight, please feel free to comment on that. Any discussions, and 3 minutes, and please identify yourself. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Good night, folks.